The moment of realization often arrives not with a shout, but with a quiet, chilling clarity. It's the point where a man looks back at a relationship that once felt like everything and sees it for what it truly was. Not a mutual exchange of love, but a one-sided extraction of resources. The affection, which felt so tangible in the moment, is revealed in hindsight to have been a carefully crafted performance. The attention that made him feel seen and valued now appears as a strategic investment, and the depth of intimacy feels more like a scripted scene designed to foster vulnerability and trust, making him a more willing provider. This epiphany is deeply unsettling because it forces a rewrite of his entire emotional history, questioning the authenticity of every shared laugh, every tender moment, and every whispered promise. He realizes he was not loved for the man he was, his character, his dreams, his core self, but was instead valued for the stability, attention, and emotional labor he could provide. He was a resource to be managed, not a partner to be cherished. This dynamic is often described as being drained, a feeling of profound exhaustion that persists even in the absence of overt conflict. It's the hallmark of interacting with what many term an energy vampire, the performer. Through a combination of learned behavior and subconscious strategy, becomes a mirror, reflecting whatever version of themselves will most effectively secure what they seek. Their entire presence in the relationship can become a subtle, sustained performance aimed at maximizing what they can draw from their partner. This is why so many men feel a deep, inexplicable fatigue, even when the relationship looks perfect from the outside. Beneath the surface of every seemingly sweet word or loving embrace runs an undercurrent of calculation, a silent transaction where his energy is the currency. He wasn't building a life with a lover. He was financing a production in which he was both the lead actor and the sole patron, pouring his essence into a show that was destined to close the moment he could no longer pay the price of admission. The curtain falls, and he is left alone on an empty stage, realizing the connection he prized was merely a convincing illusion, a beautiful set with nothing behind it. The mechanics of this draining dynamic are rarely overt. They operate through a calculated and cyclical engine of chaos, push-pull system designed to keep the target off balance and perpetually engaged. It begins not with a dramatic confrontation, but with an intoxicating high. She offers passion, intensity, and seemingly unconditional affection. This phase is the hook. It makes you believe you have finally found something rare and profound, creating a benchmark of happiness against which all future interactions will be measured. It feels like a genuine connection because it is precisely what you've been seeking. However, this is swiftly followed by the pull, a sudden, often unexplained withdrawal of that very warmth and attention. The texts become scarce, the energy turns cold, and the affection is replaced with distance. This shift is destabilizing. The natural human response, especially when you believe you've found something real, is to chase. You scramble to diagnose the problem, to apologize for unknown offenses, to pour more energy, attention, and reassurance into the relationship to win back the blissful state you initially experience. This cycle is not a random fluctuation of emotion. It is a calculated form of control. The warmth is the bait, and the withdrawal is the trap. Each time you successfully win her back through increased effort, you are unconsciously trained. You learn that your peace and security are contingent upon your ability to constantly perform and provide. The relationship becomes a game where the rules change without warning, and you are always playing catch-up. This emotional whiplash, the intense highs and devastating lows, is often mistaken for passion. You might tell yourself, she just feels things so deeply, or we just have such a fiery connection. But true passion builds intimacy and security. It does not systematically dismantle it. This chaos is manipulation, and its primary function is to keep you in a state of anxious pursuit. The performer thrives in this volatile environment because your confusion is their fuel. While you are trying to build a stable, consistent foundation for a partnership, they are feeding on the emotional volatility itself. The endless discussions about the relationship's status, the constant need to prove your commitment, and the emotional labor required to manage their shifting moods all constitute a massive energy transfer. You are pouring your focus, your emotional stability, and your mental bandwidth into a black hole of need. You find yourself losing focus on your own mission, your work, your goals, because all your cognitive resources are being redirected toward managing the storm they create. By keeping you unbalanced and guessing, they ensure you are never calm or clear-headed enough to see the pattern for what it truly is. A performance designed for extraction. You are not navigating the natural ups and downs of love. You are being deliberately drained, one emotional crisis at a time. Mistaking the exhaustion of the chase for the effort of building something real, the performance is so convincing because it is meticulously crafted using a language everyone understands: emotion. For a man who often operates on a framework of logic and direct communication, emotions are typically authentic expressions of an internal state. Tears signify genuine pain. A smile reflects real happiness, and affection is an outward expression of inner love. This inherent assumption of good faith is the very vulnerability the performance exploits. The performer wields emotions not as honest reflections of their inner world, but as precise tools to engineer specific responses from their partner. This is the core of the illusion, the ability to simulate authentic feeling to provoke a real and draining reaction from you. One of the most potent tools in this arsenal is a technique known as mirroring. In the initial idealization phase, the performer acts as a flawless mirror, reflecting back to you everything you desire most in a partner. They are not presenting a true self, but are conducting a subtle and rapid scan of your preferences, vulnerabilities, and ideals. If you value intellectual curiosity, they will suddenly share deep thoughts and ask profound questions. If you admire independence, they will present a front of fierce self-sufficiency. If you crave a nurturing home life, they will perform as the quintessential partner. This mirroring is incredibly effective because it creates a powerful and instant sense of connection. You feel profoundly seen and understood, believing you have finally found your true counterpart, your other half. In reality, you are not connecting with a person. You are falling in love with a reflection of your own desires, a phantom meticulously constructed to capture your interest and lower your defenses. This strategic, abusive emotion extends far beyond the beginning. Tears can be summoned on command to elicit sympathy and guilt, effectively ending an argument or derailing a conversation about their behavior. Affection and seduction can be deployed not from a place of genuine desire, but as a reward for compliance or a tool to reassert control after a period of withdrawal. They can say "I love you" with convincing sincerity in one moment and, when feeling dissatisfied or bored, become distant and critical the next. The most disorienting aspect is that in each individual moment, the performance looks completely real. The tears are wet, the smile reaches their eyes, the words sound heartfelt. This is why men remain trapped for so long. Clinging to the memory of the good moments and believing the real her is still in there, buried under temporary stress, they are trying to solve a logical puzzle with emotional pieces that are designed to change shape. You are attempting to find consistency in a performance that is, by its very nature, inconsistent and entirely dependent on the performer's immediate goals. You are trying to read truth from a script, and the script is written in disappearing ink. The path to reclaiming your power begins not with a grand confrontation, but with a quiet, internal shift in perception. The first and most crucial step is to truly see the dynamic for what it is: a performance designed for extraction, not a partnership built on mutual growth. This requires dismantling the central illusion you've been living under. You must stop interpreting manufactured drama as passion and emotional chaos as a sign of deep feeling. Real connection provides clarity and security. It does not leave you perpetually confused, anxious, and exhausted. This reframing is painful because it forces you to grieve the relationship you thought you had. But it is also the key that unlocks the cage. Once you understand that you are not dealing with a flawed partner who needs fixing, but with a self-sustaining system that feeds on your energy, your entire strategy must change. Conventional methods of engagement are not only futile, but are actively counterproductive. You cannot out-argue the performance, because logic is meaningless against weaponized emotion. You cannot outgive the appetite, as every sacrifice you make only fuels the cycle further. Teaching the performer that their tactics are effective, trying to fix the situation, or explain your perspective simply provides more engagement, more energy, and more drama, which is exactly what the dynamic thrives on. The only way to break the cycle is to cease all participation. This is achieved through strategic silence and emotional detachment. Silence here does not mean the silent treatment, a manipulative tactic meant to punish. It is a conscious refusal to play the game. It is choosing not to justify, argue, defend, or explain. It is becoming a black hole of reaction. Your energy, your attention, your emotional responses are no longer available for extraction. When you successfully detach and stop feeding the performance with your reactions, a profound shift occurs. The act, deprived of its audience and its fuel, begins to collapse under its own weight. The performer, accustomed to controlling the rhythm of your interactions through chaos, is suddenly faced with a calm, immovable object. Their tools become useless. Tears no longer trigger a comforting response. Accusations no longer spark a defensive argument. Withdrawal no longer inspires a desperate chase. This is when the mask often slips most dramatically, revealing the emptiness or desperation beneath. They may escalate their tactics in a final attempt to regain control, or they may simply move on to seek a new source of energy. Either way, you win. Your detachment is not a negotiation. It is a unilateral declaration of independence. It is the ultimate act of self-preservation, a reclaiming of the mental and emotional resources that were being siphoned away. You are not merely walking away from another person. You are rescuing the man you had become drained, confused, and lost in the fog of someone else's show-hand, reclaiming the right to direct your own energy toward your own mission. Growth and peace. The journey through this realization culminates not in bitterness, but in a profound and hard-won clarity. The initial aftermath of detachment can feel like a loss, a void where a significant relationship once resided. There is a natural period of grieving, not for the person they truly were, but for the beautiful illusion you believed in and the future you thought you were building. However, as that emotional fog clears, a powerful transformation begins. You start to notice the quiet return of your energy, the sharpening of your focus, and the gradual restoration of a peace you may have forgotten existed. This is the great revelation. Their absence is not a wound, but a release. Every ounce of mental and emotional strength that was once consumed by managing their chaos, deciphering their moods, and fueling their needs is now returned to you. This reclaimed energy becomes the capital for your own rebirth, available to be invested in your mission, your personal growth, and your genuine well-being. This experience, as painful as it was, becomes your greatest teacher. It forges within you a discerning eye, an internal radar calibrated to detect the faintest signals of a performance. You learn to see the patterns you were once blind to, the love-bombing intensity that feels too good to be true, the subtle tests designed to gauge your compliance, the way a compliment can be layered with a hidden demand, or how a victim narrative is constructed to elicit sympathy and disarm your boundaries. The old version of you, operating on good faith and a desire to connect, would have engaged, trying to understand or fix it. The new version, armed with clarity, simply observes. There is no need to argue, beg, or prove yourself. You understand that engaging with the performance is like trying to wrestle with a shadow. It's a futile effort that only drains you. Instead, you stand firm in your own frame, your values, and your peace. This unshakable presence is your ultimate defense. The act cannot penetrate it and simply collapses at your feet for lack of engagement. This newfound clarity does not just change how you see romantic partners. It fundamentally rewires your approach to life itself. You develop a lower tolerance for drama and inconsistency in all areas: friendships, family, and professional settings. You stop chasing temporary highs, quick fixes, and the validation of those who do not have your best interests at heart. You begin to value what is real, substantive, and reciprocal. You understand that true strength lies not in weathering storms, but in choosing a climate where storms are rare. You build a life where your energy is a sacred resource. It's guarded carefully and only invested in people and pursuits that offer a genuine return. This is the foundation of authentic power, the ability to discern between what nourishes you and what drains you, and the courage to choose accordingly. The ultimate irony of this entire dynamic is that the performance, while incredibly damaging to its targets, is also self-destructive for the performer. They may achieve short-term control and validation, but they ultimately fail to build anything real. They move from source to source, but each cycle leaves them more hollow, their act becoming more desperate and less convincing as they age. They never learn the language of authentic connection, only the grammar of manipulation. They are trapped in their own show, forever needing a new audience, but incapable of finding a true co-star. Your detachment, therefore, is not just an act of self-preservation. It is a refusal to enable a cycle that harms both of you. By walking away, you force a reckoning, however small, and you reclaim your narrative. You are no longer a spectator in someone else's play or a resource to be consumed. You are the author, the director, and the lead in your own life. And that story, built on clarity, purpose, and genuine connection, is one worth building.